You predicted the decline of Russia well before the Ukraine war began. What do you see going on in Russia today, and what is its trajectory going forward?
Well, the trajectory is a lot harder than it was 3 years ago, but let me try to give you the story. So, the Russian geography is awful. They don't have any real strategic barriers like mountains that are close to them. They did in the Soviet system. And so, a big part of the logic for the Ukraine war is to get back to a forward position military uh, bulwark that shrinks their functional borders. So right now they've got about 4 or 5,000 miles of basically open terrain on their edge. Independent Russia actually has longer external borders than the old Soviet Union did, despite the fact that it lost all that territory. It's just a crook of where the
Wow,
maps were
interesting.
drawn.
Yeah.
But if they can get to the other side of Ukraine and halfway through Poland and through the Baltic republics to the Baltic Sea, then that 4 to 5,000 miles shrinks to under 500 miles, and they can rely on geography to help instead of hurt. So this war was always going to happen. It was always going to happen about now because the Russian demography is awful. It's aging, it's dying. It's not as fast, not as bad as China is anymore. But they were always going to run out of men in their 20s this decade. So it always had to happen in the first half of this decade so that it could be finished by the end of this decade. Um, what's evolved in the last 3 years that underlines that is just the sheer number of casualties the Russians have taken. We're now talking about 1 million men that have either been killed or disabled, and another 1 million men in their 20s who have fled. So if we keep up the current rate of the conflict, the Russians will literally lose sufficient men in their 20s to prosecute the war within 5 years. That assumes nothing changes. Of course, things are dynamic because we're going through a revolution in military affairs. And the way that drones have evolved over the last 3 years is nothing that anyone could have predicted. So this war is very much up for grabs. By the numbers, the Russians have the industrial plant. They're backstopped by the Chinese and the Iranians and the North Koreans. And they're just shoving so much material into the system. And they're expanding their industrial plant for military purposes that is still absolutely their war to lose. But the Ukrainians are not going quietly, and they're proving to be very creative and very innovative, and they are taking these technologies forward as well. So we are in a tech race in two poor countries who correctly believe they have everything to lose. And if the United States were to go in a war with Ukraine right now, I'm not sure we would do very well because already the technology is involved in a direction that we are not prepared for. Same goes for Russia. I don't know. Demographically, the Russian picture is atrocious. They are definitely looking at national dissolution this century. But whether it happens in 20 years or 80 years really matters. And that determines by how this war is going to play out. So I am watching the tech evolve very, very closely because this is an example of technological breakthroughs that don't seem to be dependent on AI. AI could take it in a new direction, absolutely. But it seems to me that this play can continue forward even if globalization breaks down. And that makes it truly transformative in the long run in a way that we can only now begin to guess at.